thinking a spontaneous trip away from the city would solve all her problems. Amanda Sanford secretly packed up her family's bags while her husband, Clay, slept. She convinced him to join her and their 2 kids, 16-year-old Archie and 13-year-old Rose, for an unplanned weekend getaway at a luxurious rental house near the beach, hoping to escape people and their stressful New York life. The house was breathtaking, and the family quickly settled in, with the kids immediately diving into the swimming pool. As the afternoon approached, Amanda headed out for groceries, briefly spotting a bearded man in the local market who was inexplicably stocking up on large quantities of canned goods and water. She found it odd, but didn't dwell on it as she returned to the house with a pack of cigarettes for Clay, and then they all headed to the nearby beach. They settled on the sand, enjoying their food and the beautiful day, until Rose, who was fixated on a large ship in the distance, alerted them that it was getting dangerously close and wasn't stopping. Initially ignoring the enormous oil tanker, the family soon realized the terrifying reality and, along with other beachgoers, began running for their lives as the massive vessel crashed onto the beach, causing immediate panic. Security quickly sealed off the area, telling everyone that the ship's GPS had malfunctioned, a story the authorities claimed was part of many such groundings across the coast. Still shaken, the Sanfords returned to the rental house, only to find the Wi-Fi was dead. The TV had no signal, and their phones were useless. In a strange moment of calm, they spotted 2 wild deer staring at them from the lawn, which Clay optimistically declared a good omen, but the feeling of unease settled over Amanda as night fell. As the parents tried to relax with some drinks and a game of Jenga, they were startled by a sudden knock at the door. A well-dressed man, George H. Scott, introduced himself as the owner of the house, accompanied by his witty daughter, Ruth, explaining that a sudden citywide blackout had forced them to seek shelter in their second home. Clay, sympathetic to their situation and the cold outside, invited them in, but Amanda was immediately suspicious of the strangers, especially since they were African American, and she found their story of a complete city blackout fabricated. She argued fiercely that their privacy was being interrupted, attempting to file a complaint on her laptop, but the failed internet confirmed that they were indeed isolated. To ease the tension, GH struggled to open a hidden liquor drawer, revealing a pistol and a stash of money, from which he retrieved $1,000 as a partial refund so they could stay the night. Clay readily accepted the cash, but Amanda was furious and pulled him aside, expressing her strong doubts that GH and Ruth were the actual owners, suggesting they could be scammers or housekeepers. Her suspicions only grew stronger when GH couldn't produce any ID, claiming he'd left his wallet in his coat at the Symphony, and she noted the lack of any family photos in the house. However, before she could press him further, a loud, shrill sound erupted from the TV, which briefly turned on to announce a national emergency. This startling event convinced Clay to let GH and Ruth stay in the basement suite, though Ruth was openly unhappy about the accommodation. Ruth, annoyed that Amanda's questioning of her father was interrupted, maintained her distrust of the family. As the night wore on, the TV briefly flashed a message revealing the national emergency was caused by a global cyberattack, a warning that tragically went unnoticed. The next morning, Rose woke up anxious to watch the finale of her favorite show, Friends, only to be disappointed that the internet was still down. Meanwhile, Amanda was shocked to see several breaking news alerts briefly flash and then mysteriously vanish from her phone, all pointing to a cybersecurity attack that had crippled the entire power system. Downstairs, Ruth and Amanda discussed the situation. Ruth suggested hackers might have attacked the powerhouse, crippling the entire system. GH tried to play down the fears, comparing it to an old computer bug, but the underlying tension remained as they realized they had lost all contact with GH's wife and Ruth's mother, who was supposed to be returning from a business trip to Morocco. While the adults talked, Rose, sitting alone by the pool, was shocked to see the 2 deer from the previous night had returned, and this time, hundreds of them were silently gathered around the edge of the garden, staring. Shortly after, with communications completely severed, Clay drove off to find someone who knew what was happening, while GH also decided to head to his neighbor's house a few miles away. Out on the road, Clay's GPS was useless, forcing him to drive aimlessly. His car radio briefly picked up intermittent alerts about the ongoing cyberattack, stating it had caused a catastrophic environmental disaster and was impacting animal migration patterns. Unaware of the broadcast, Clay spotted a terrified, Spanish-speaking woman seeking help, but unable to understand her distress. He grew scared and accelerated away, abandoning her on the roadside. Shortly after, he was terrified by a drone dropping thousands of red leaflets written in Arabic, which soon engulfed his car. Meanwhile, GH arrived at his neighbor's house to find it mysteriously abandoned and in complete disarray. He searched the empty home and found a satellite phone, but even this advanced device couldn't connect to any network, confirming his fears about a larger communications failure. His search led him to the nearby beach, where he discovered the wreckage of a plane crash. Pulling a human hand and watch from the sand, realizing an airplane had crashed and left bodies lying around. As he tried to process the horror, he narrowly avoided a second airplane that nosedived into the sand right beside him. Back at the rental house, Rose and Archie had wandered into the nearby woods, coming across an empty shed where Archie was bitten by a tick on his ankle. GH, returning home completely soaked in seawater, immediately confided in Amanda about the crashing planes and the non-functional satellite phone, theorizing that hackers had knocked out the entire satellite system. He was cut off by a sudden, ear-splitting, high-frequency sound that caused everyone immense pain, forcing Amanda to run out into the woods to bring the children back to safety. Once the noise stopped and they were back inside, Archie complained of feeling dizzy. Amanda, shaken, recalled the man she saw stockpiling supplies at the grocery store, whom GH recognized as his survivalist contract, Danny. Clay finally returned, visibly shaken, and showed them the leaflet. Archie, translating from his online shooter games, revealed the terrifying message, "Death to America." Convinced they were under attack, the Sanfords disregarded GH's pleas to stay and fled in their car, intending to drive to Amanda's sister in New Jersey. Their escape was immediately blocked when they hit the highway, finding it jammed solid with hundreds of self-driving Teslas that were autonomously colliding with each other. Realizing the cars were on autopilot due to the damaged satellite system, Amanda frantically drove around the wreckage, narrowly avoiding a barrage of incoming self-driving vehicles, forcing the family to turn back to GH's house, as they had nowhere else safe to go. As night fell again, Rose was still obsessed with watching the Friends finale. Meanwhile, Archie, suffering from fever, masturbated to photos he had secretly taken of Ruth by the pool, while Ruth, sitting by the pool with Clay, smoked marijuana and asked him strangely provocative questions. Amanda and GH found themselves bonding over drinks, and GH shared a disturbing story about a friend and defense contractor, one of the so-called evil cabals who run the world, who had called him the previous evening and asked him to move around a large sum of money, telling GH only to take care of himself. Just as Amanda and GH were growing closer and sharing their fears, they were startled by a sudden noise and discovered a large flock of flamingo birds swimming in their pool, a clear sign that nature itself was being disrupted. GH, sharing his genuine fear that his wife might be dead, began dancing with Amanda, trying to take their minds off the chaos. But the moment was abruptly shattered when the second shrill, supersonic noise blasted out, breaking the lights and sending the flamingos flying away in terror. When the terrifying sound subsided and the power failed completely, the families huddled together for the night. But Amanda realized Archie now had a fever. Rose, wide awake, then narrated an unsettling biblical story about a man who refused all help during a flood because he was waiting for God to save him, only to die and be told in heaven that the boat and helicopter were God's warnings. She chillingly concluded to her mother, "I think I'm done waiting." The next morning, the severity of the situation escalated dramatically. Rose was missing, and Archie woke up vomiting blood, only to look in the mirror and watch in horror as all his teeth began falling out. Archie desperately thought the illness was related to the tick bite he got in the woods, so GH, recognizing the dire need for medicine, suggested they take him to Danny, the survivalist contractor, speculating the cause might be Lyme disease. While GH and Clay, distraught over their missing daughter, drove Archie to Danny's isolated home, Amanda and Ruth set out together to search for Rose. Their search led them back to the empty shed in the woods, where they were suddenly confronted by an even larger, silent herd of deer. Terrified, Amanda and Ruth began screaming at the top of their lungs, successfully scaring the animals away, which caused them to collapse into a weeping embrace, finally bonding over their shared fear. Meanwhile, GH and Clay reached Danny's house. where the paranoid contractor greeted them with a rifle. GH tried to convince his old friend to help Archie, but Danny refused, only caring about his own family's safety. The confrontation quickly escalated into an armed standoff, with GH pulling his pistol on Danny, who held his rifle steady. Clay, stepping into the tense moment, pleaded with Danny as one father to another, appealing to their shared desire to protect their families, which finally convinced Danny to stand down and trade some antibiotics for the $1,000 Clay offered. After Archie took the medicine, Danny provided a chilling insight. He theorized that the microwave sound and Archie's inexplicable loss of teeth were linked, stating the same kind of weapon was tested in Cuba and that the country was now under attack by multiple foreign enemies. Shaken by Danny's theory, GH confided in Clay that his military background had prepared him for this scenario. The country was likely in the middle of a three-stage campaign designed to result in a coup d'etat. The first stage was isolation, which disabled communication and transportation. The second stage, which they were currently experiencing, was synchronized chaos, meant to spread disinformation and turn people against each other, as happened with Dan. The final, terrifying stage, he concluded, would be a civil war and total collapse of society. As GH and Clay promised to stick together and head to a rumored neighbor's bunker, Amanda and Ruth watched in horror from the woods as the skyline of New York City began to be bombed, covered in smoke and ash, a final, grim confirmation of the war. They realized Rose had been right all along, as they hadn't listened to the warnings. Finally, the missing Rose was revealed to have found the neighbor's house with the underground bunker. Having had enough of waiting, she explored the well-stocked, secure shelter. A communication screen inside flashed a warning of elevated radiation levels across multiple U.S. cities and advised people to seek shelter. Ignoring the grave news, Rose's attention was drawn to the massive DVD collection, and she was overcome with relief and joy when she discovered the final season of Friends. She sat down, put the DVD in, and began watching the series finale, seemingly disconnected from the utter destruction of the world outside, with only Rose's contented laughter echoing the final, ironic note of the movie. The movie then comes to a chilling, abrupt end.